Everyone seems to be wondering what the future holds. We all are looking at how can we niche in, how can we stand out, right? How can we differentiate ourselves, and ultimately, what is the next big thing? Right? Now, the answer is simple, but it will only make sense with a little context. So you're going to have to hear me out if you want the answer. Our bodies are programmed internally to need things. But what we need is hard to control. So businesses have invented entire industries around this idea of making things people want, right, that they don't actually need. Right? We are surrounded by industries of control. Control from addiction, whether it be sugar, caffeine, alcohol, lust, right? Our senses are hijacked through hypnosis, through gamification, these dopamine releases, right? Through social media, through gambling, sports. But this does not give us real long-term satisfaction. We always are kind of defaulting back to what our body actually needs, not what the marketers trick us into wanting. The industries which are thriving and will continue to thrive are those which ultimately God has programmed, us to biologically need. Think of like the perfect environment that God, had created, wanting to give us happiness. To humans, God created man in the garden, surrounded by healthy food, beautiful nature. They had a purpose, right? To tend to plants and animals. This idea of health, homesteading, husbandry, being a handyman, helping to heal others. Right? We were given a blueprint to be a people that others look to. We had divine guidance on how to help others find happiness. We had been faithful to this message and applied it into our own lives as well as sharing it with others. We would have been the oracles of our times. People would have come to us, and we could then be able to point them to the Creator. But we failed. We failed this calling. We had the health and medical message, but we let the Buddhists commercialize it. Which, by the way, if you've ever been to a vegan festival, right? Veganism is centered around anti-animal cruelty, not how to take care of our bodies. And so the entire health message has been lost. Go to a vegan festival, or honestly, even to an Adventist potluck. It's all brown food, right? We are emulating how to make a fake version of a Babylonian meal rather than making things that will help our bodies, the way that Daniel, the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, remember their real names, right? The next piece was, we were given a message to ultimately leave the cities. We were called to exit and do country living. But this message was also neglected. And now the preppers and the doomsdayers, they're the ones that have taken this message, right? About how to, think about self-survival instead of thinking about how to get closer to God by avoiding contaminating influences. Avoiding consumerism. This was taken by the minimalist movement, which was mostly a rejection of a lifestyle that they cannot attain. The Sabbath. The world is calling for days of rest, days of digital detoxing, but they're missing the message if in that rest, they're not making that true connection back to their Creator. Like, even in the business sense, businesses are calling for this idea of servant leadership. Right? Capitalists are realizing the need for happy employees. But they're doing so as a way to enhance profits, not in a way to... Do you see how when we neglect this gold mine of knowledge that was given to us over 150 years ago, how the world then, sees this need and takes it, but without the context of the Creator's love. It's either distorted or just not executed correctly as God intended. So what's left? If we are looking to the future here, what is left? Well, there's one last piece of light, and that is of true education. We are called to a new, or rather to return to an old education. with less emphasis on theoretical knowledge, right? Pushing memorization and, this a need to return back to practical skills that were lost in the industrialization, but are needed to thrive in an era of globalization. In this post-AI economy, we must really get back to the basics. There's a need for a knowledge of gardening, right? A knowledge of knowing what it goes into our bodies and being able to control that. The more the industrialized the food supply chain is, the more need that we have for independence. The freedom of knowing how to build our own home, even how to make money, helping others build their own homes. The call for entrepreneurship, for honesty in business, for men and women of businesses who are solving problems. This is a solution that's rooted in other-centeredness, and it's not from a desire to control, but a desire to uplift and empower and ennoble. To invent ways of being acquainted with people. In Upward Look, it tells us, invent new ways of being acquainted with people. To really earn their trust, to understand them, and be able to then share how God has worked in your life. We need this reset. We need true education. Right? We need an educational reform, whether we are chasing after the world's accreditation, when the world should come to us for training. If we can show what it would look like. Right? Now, this is a call to arms. This is a battle against false education systems which teach us that we came from monkeys, that we should invent our own agendas, that we are, gods of our own and can manifest. Ultimately, they're teaching us that our Creator does not exist. Even our own education systems teach that creation, but it's so conformed to the world's standards of education that they are graduating as educated weaklings with no real skills, right? A need to survive only by hanging on to this world's economy, which is so fragile, it'll soon fail. So if you're a parent, stop pushing your kids for a college degree and inspire them and empower them to learn a useful trade. Teach them about problem solving. Teach them about understanding how they can be masters of their own industry. If you're an educator, wake up to the reality that you are perpetuating. If you're a business owner or a craftsman, look for opportunities to mentor, to train apprentices. And if you're a seeker who is lost, come to Christ, looking to Him who can give actual purpose. The rocks will cry out if we are unwilling. God of heaven, wake us up.